If you know anything about Jesus' ministry, you didn't see that practice playing itself out strongly in his ministry. He said specifically in one verse, I came just for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He was saying that to a Gentile woman. To his disciples, when he sent them out, he said that they were not to go into the area of the Gentiles, but only to Israel. And so it sounds like when this verse says, how did he preach to those that were far off? Well, there was an important point for his ministry at that time, that he would preach to those that were near. He first had to fulfill the prophecies. He first had to be the king of the Jews. He first had to offer himself to those people. He first had to sacrifice his blood. And so his mission was primarily focused on those people in the first time that he came. His preaching to those who were near was very evident. There's the verse that I was looking for, Matthew 10, verses 5 and 6, say, I'm sorry, I misquoted it even in my notes, so I'll just neglect that. But he sent his disciples there to those who were near. He himself preached to those who were near. He did not neglect those who were far at that same time. It's the Matthew 15 passage that I do have in my notes where that Syrophoenician woman is looking for his help. And Jesus answered, as I've already read, but she says, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. So though he came to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, those who are near primarily, he did not neglect those who were far. Remember the account in John chapter 4 where he reaches out to the woman in Samaria? How did he come to be in Samaria in the first place? I mean, any self-respecting Jew would walk the extra miles to get around Samaria so that they didn't have to defile themselves by going through it. How did Jesus come to be in Samaria in the first place, that he could find this woman at the well and minister to her? Doesn't the scriptures say he must needs go through Samaria? He needed to. And to his disciples he said, I have bread to eat that you don't know of. His ministry was to those who were far off, even in his first coming, but it was especially so afterwards. Jesus prophesied that if I am lifted up, meaning to be crucified, I will draw all men to myself. And his great commission to the disciples upon his death and resurrection was now go into all the world and what? Preach the gospel to every creature. This is what it says is happening. He came and he preached peace to those who were far off and those who were near. Well, he began it when he was here. But it was especially completed after he had ascended back into heaven. Do you remember how the book of Acts begins? It begins by saying, I wrote you the first treatise. I'm going to summarize or paraphrase it a little bit. I wrote you the first treatise, which was Luke, of all that Jesus began both to do and to teach. Now, if you say something began, what do you mean? What are you meaning? That it's still going, right? If it was all that Jesus had done, you would say, that Gospel of Luke that covered all the point until Jesus died, was buried, and rose again, and then ascended back into heaven, you would say, that's what he did. But Acts begins by saying, I wrote what he began to do, and now Acts are the continuing works of Jesus as he works through his body, the church, which is us. And so we find that when we're looking at the term preach here, this is a responsibility for us who are sitting here today. Now, how many of you, if I was to ask for a show of hands, you don't have to unless you really feel obligated to do so, but how many of you would feel qualified if I said, and next Sunday it is your turn to preach? How many volunteers would I get? Sign up sheet, Joe says he'll do it. Thanks, Joe. And I think I know Tom would be willing as well. There are some of you who would jump at that, but Tom doesn't know what we're talking about because he's been busy serving back there. You would be willing to preach if I called on you next week. Yes. There are a couple of you, but when I use the term preach, most of you feel I'm outside this fold. So we're going to need to understand what the term is. You know what it means to preach? It's two Greek words mashed together. And don't worry, I'm not going to scare you. You already know the big one. And you kind of already know the little one too. The little one is you. It's kind of fun to say there, but it means good. All right? And the longer one is like, well, you could shorten it to angel. You know what an angel is, right? An angel is a messenger. And so to evangelize is to have a good message. That's all it is. It's just something that you have found to be worthwhile to you that you then tell to somebody else. You're just taking a message that you have found to be helpful for you and you speak it. The same Greek word can have a formal aspect and it can have an informal aspect. The formal aspect happens from the front here, and that's what we normally think of as preaching. Happens from the front. Listen to Acts 5:42 where it says, "And daily in the temple and in every house they did not cease teaching and preaching," evangelizing or evangelizing. That was formal in the way just regular, normal men and women go everywhere. 8:4 word. This is word. This is us. This isn't us as in Joe and I.